I still needed to make the desert and a lake, which will be a lot more interesting to
So now we
build,
can
since
get
I
this
won't be
ready.
able to just find the materials right outside my house. But before
The
building
foot is
those, the
darker than
package
the
for my
stomach.
$1,000 terrarium just arrived, so I'm going to start building that first. Okay, this is pretty heavy,
Trouble is,
but
the
I think I
sketches
got
are
it.
getting
There we go, that is the box.
But
Now, let me open this up, and I swear, if this thing is not already put together, I'm going to be very mad, because I do not want to finish from scratch. Oh, no, I don't think this is put together. Yeah, it's definitely not. There's just glass panes here. Okay, there goes 2 hours probably.
Remember, it is a game you are meant to be playing, and use it as a chance to
And along with
experiment
the
with
tank,
things
I
that
also
might
did buy a bunch of
have been
supplies,
intimidated of or
about
scared off the trying.
$395.87
Also,
worth
try
of supplies,
to
which are
help
right
people.
here.
Like, if you're
But
not
to
gonna
start
get
off
bites
the
every
build,
single
we basically
time,
got to get
go
rid
out
of
there is
all
a
of
really
this
good
stuff.
chance to
So,
meet other friends
I
who
guess
are
the first
artists.
step for building this
So I
terrarium is to put this little
encourage
water
you to
filter
try
chamber
this.
thing that I built into it. For this
This is
$1,000
the point where
build,
for
I'm
fun
going all
experimentation
out,
like
and I'm
we've done.
making an
Exactly.
entire chunk of the rainforest with a working
So
river
even
running
wax
through it, and this
crafting
will let me
videos
filter
are
the
actually
water and
kind of.
allow
I'm
fish to
much
live in
more
there. So to build this thing, I first sprayed the entire back of the glass with some
I like
silicone,
cafe,
which
it's
will
more
allow
like
me to
a
put
couple
tree
of
branches
in the
sticking
background.
out on it. To
Part
keep
of
the
it is
wood in
because,
place, I used some spray foam to do some more
then
spraying.
I
And
wasn't
finally, I
working
stuck a bunch of dirt all along the back
and
so
I
it
was
looks
sitting
more
on top of
natural.
it.
Alright, look at this
So
thing. This
that's
thing is
also a bit
actually
of an
enormous. This is like as tall as me. And don't worry about this being ugly right now, because
here.
later on I'm going to add a ton of plants here to make this actually look good. But for now, we're going to focus on the floor area, because right now I'm going to make this into a river. To make it, I first glued in a piece of foam to easily separate the land and water areas. Then I got a ton of rocks and wood to create a natural looking underwater environment, because you know, there's usually rocks and wood underwater. Alright, there we go then. It's done now. So let's finish that underwater area look.
I didn't think I could do watercolor either. This is my second piece. I think maybe you have not yet done watercolor.
Okay,
That
now that
doesn't
the
mean you
floor and the
can't.
water portion's done,
Why
let's
not
get
try?
to the floor and the land portion.
Again,
For
this
this,
is
I'm
what
going to be
art
mostly
is
using these Leica balls. Honestly, these kind of look like
Also,
cocoa
speaking of
pebbles,
kind
but I think I learned my
of,
lesson. Now, to complete this floor area, I need to
yeah,
put a
there's
layer of
bit of
substrate
crazy.
on top of it. But before
I mean, I
doing
tried
that, I
watercress
used this
today. I've
pump
never
to
had
do some
watercress
plumbing
before.
and create a
It was
tube that will
fun,
allow the
actually.
river to actually have a
I didn't
working
know.
water flow. Then finally, I added the dirt on top to finish the floor area. Alright, now there's just two more things to finish this build. One to add water and two to add plants. And thankfully I can do that first one pretty quickly, just like this. Now I want to test if the water flow actually works, to see if we can actually turn this into a river. Alright, so let me plug this thing in. It is better work. I spent like the past 2 hours doing this, and oh, okay, so it's working, but the water flow is very extreme. It's kind of messing up the sand. Okay, this is just making the water very dirty right now. Can you stop doing that? So to fix the issue, I got some tape to try and make the end of the tube more narrow. Oh, no. Oh, no, that is not working. Oh, no, taping it does not work. Oh my god. Now in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have been doing that right next to the power strip, but thankfully my house didn't explode. Anyways, eventually I got the water flow working, and the $1,000 terrarium was starting to come together pretty nicely. Since things aren't going too well for this right now, I'm going to take a break and just move on to the $10 terrariums. Alright, so we're moving from this beautiful $1,000 build over back to the minuscule $10 build. As you know, the forest build is already done, so we're moving on to the desert build now. Now for the drainage layer of this, we can do the same thing we did in the forest and just go get some rocks. But now this is where things get tricky, because I can't really just go outside and get sand, because I basically live in the middle of not a desert, you know, there's trees on the sides and stuff. So that means the only way I can get some sand is if I buy it. I don't know if there's actually going to be any sand for $5 that I can buy.
Forrest eventually makes a chestnut wig and starts streaming again. You don't have to hope too much. That's genuinely
oh my gosh, it's not even lying. $3 for sand. Okay, that is actually so good. I can actually get some sand now. Well, I guess I have to go to Mexico. I'll be there soon. Thankfully, it was still in stock when I got there, so I bought that, and then I poured it in the jar. Now, similar to the forest terrarium that we built earlier, we're going to need plants for this desert one. Now, ideally, we get a nice cactus in this thing. I think that look pretty cool.
I don't have a yellow.
The only problem is, you know, our budget is lacking a little bit. Okay, well, maybe there's a chance I can buy a cactus for super cheap. Cactus near me. And yeah, $1,000, $200 for a cactus. Wait, there's actually one for $1. Wait, what? Okay, wait, this is actually good. I can buy a cactus for $1. That fits in I love it. It's at this store called Michael's. I've never even heard of that, but $1. I guess I'm going to Michael's. So we went there, and they had some absolutely fantastical cacti to choose from. So I got myself this. This massive cactus
I
will
don't
be
know how to say.
$1. And I've like literally never heard of Michael's. There was no cars in the parking lot, guys.
I
You need to
grew
go
up
to Michael's.
doing
They got some
physical
fantastical
comics.
deals there. All right, let's get this in here.
It was kind of
You
my,
got a little
my dream
hole with
too.
that golden spoon.
Comic
Don't ask
artist,
why
I
it's golden.
studied,
And so I added the cactus in, and the desert build was now complete. But to fully
and then I
finish the
gave up on
terrarium, I once
because
again
of
needed to
the
add life into it. And since I
And
wouldn't be able to
digital
buy
was easy to
anything
carry
with my
around, so
71-cent
you
budget,
could
I got the
do
idea to put a worm in there from outside
So,
to act as a
kind of
sandworm.
approaching
Because, you know, I
comics
didn't really
from
have
the
any
back.
other options. Alright,
And
let's put
reapproaching
this
the way I
sandworm
thought
in
it
his
was
home,
going.
and there we go. The desert build is now finished.
It's been interesting, one, because I forgot how fast I am with
Okay, so I was planning
traditional
on moving
comics.
straight
Like,
to building the
I
lake right
finished a
after this.
4-page
You remember
comic
how I
in
got
2
this
hours,
cactus
whereas,
at Michael's
digital
or
doesn't take me
Michelle? I don't know what it's called, but you know, I got this cactus. But while I was
Okay.
there, I also
I
got
also
pretty much
enjoyed the
all the
process
plants we're
more.
gonna need
There's
for this
something nice about
$1,000 bill
tangibly
for a
working
good
with
price.
materials.
Barely even meant that in our
Yeah,
budget. So I'm gonna go and put these in right
I'm
now.
sorry,
I
I don't
guess.
get out of that.
Oh shoot. Oh, that's not
Digital
good.
comics.
While I was
I
putting
don't
all that
keep digital
spray foam
comics,
on the
but
back, I was
they've
supposed to
been
also put these little plant
enjoyable
pots there,
recently,
but I
and so
forgot.
I've been doing
So
that.
this is gonna be a lot harder to put
Do you
the
like Peanuts
plants.
or Calvin and Hobbes? I read
But
both.
thankfully, I'm a genius.
actually
And I used my hot
read
glue
all of
gun
Calvin
to
and
glue
Hobbes
all the
in
plant
a
pots
2-day
on
sitting
the back.
from
Then I was able to put
and
all
then
the
Peanuts I
plants
used
in
to
the
cut out
pots.
and collect. That's
I
actually
even
what I
got some
skipped on
aquatic
it.
plants to put in the
So I
water
used to cut
area
out
to
and
fully
collect
round
pictures
off
of seasons.
everything in this $1,000 bill. Now, some people may say these very obviously black pots put all
If you
around
see
the
Minecraft's
terrarium is
video on
ugly,
Minecraft,
and well, to those people, I say that you are probably right. This is pretty
And the
ugly.
opposite,
But
I'm
I
so much
guess this
faster
is
with
the
digital.
downside of the $1,000
The thing is,
bill. It's too complex to make.
you
Well,
can get a
anyways, to
theme of
complete
it,
this terrarium, I needed
and
to
I
add
can
life
watch it.
into
And
it,
fast
which I was
forward
going to
through
do by
some stuff
adding
I
in
can
fish.
do
But before doing that, I want to finish the
with it
$10 terrarium.
faster.
All right, the first two
But I
terrariums
think
are
I'm
done.
more
Now we're just
satisfied
gonna
with the
focus
process
on this
of
last
doing
one, which of course is going to be the lake. Now, I bet some of you have probably been wondering, how on earth am I going to turn this into a lake? Well, it's pretty simple actually.
Sorry,
Let me
I missed
show
that
you
part.
how we're going to do it. We're just going to take this, we're going to take it out to my car, buckle it in,
That's pretty
and
real. I would
drive.
manifest my
Now you
50
see, I
yellow
figured the
pens.
best way to make a lake terrarium is to just go to an
It's the
actual
kind of spot
lake
that you
and
have so far
scoop
was
up the
great.
sand and water. That way I wouldn't have to worry about our lack of
thing
money. Alright, I made it.
I do
mean, it's
kind
not
of
a
want to
lake, it's a
do-
river, but that's gonna have to do. This is very embarrassing. I really hope someone doesn't see me trying
I'm
to pick
gonna
up
do
this
that for
water
the
and put it in
start.
my jar. Yeah, so
And
right
then have
around
this
me,
thing
no
done
one's
with
gonna
that.
do this water, baby. Do this water. So I collected all the water I needed and also scooped up some of the dirt so I could bring it home. So I added everything in, and the lake ended up looking like this. Yeah, not very appealing. Well, there wasn't much I could do. So anyways, I needed to add life into it. And this was actually going to be pretty easy, because a few videos back, I built a lake ecosystem on my desk. And in that video, I put some albino mystery snails into it. And just recently, they had babies. So I'm just going to yoink this guy and put him into his new home. Do you see it in there? It's there, I think. Wait, no, I think it's there. I can't even tell where it is. I think it might be
So I
there.
had my
$10
friends
bills
back
were
on
all
listening to the
completely
Minecraft
finished.
This
But
person's
don't leave
collecting
yet.
a lot
Now
of
I'm adding the most
whatever.
coolest, epicest,
Sometimes
super cool
incomplete.
life
I
to the
do actually own
$1,000
a
bill.
few
Guppies.
games.
Okay, to you maybe they're not the coolest fish ever, but to me, I mean, that was pretty cool. You got spots and fins and, okay, to be nauseous out of it. So I put some of this API quick start bacteria in, so it would be safe to add the fish whilst the cycling process took place. And immediately, you could tell they absolutely
Again, I'm
loved
kind of
their
just
new
experiencing
home.
it.
Well, I can't say that they loved it for sure, but I mean, they were swimming around and stuff, so they probably
They're
did.
my
I
random
even
bullshit
turned on the
question. I have no
river
idea
flow
what
to
they're
see
even
how they
doing.
would
I'm trying to
react.
think of what
Most of
makes
them
this
seemed
amazing.
pretty annoyed, but one of them kept playing around in it and flinging himself around the river. The $1,000 terrarium and $10 terrariums are now all finished. Are the $10 terrariums better, or is the $1,000 terrarium better? And well, the answer's pretty obvious. The $1,000 terrarium is better. You do gotta remember, this is literally $1,000. Like literally, you could replace this with a used car, or okay, maybe not a car, but 2 PS5s, a gaming computer, literally $1,000. If a black widow walked into a Venus flytrap, well, what would happen? Would the trap close on top of the spider and eat it whole, or would the black widow be able to use its venom to squeeze its way out. Well, I'm going to be testing just that, along with tons of other insect types to see how strong Venus flytraps really are. Now, to get a Venus flytrap, you gotta, of course, buy one online, and so I found this website. There was two different options of stuff to buy: a cheap $10 Venus flytrap bundle and an expensive $100 bundle. Oh, this is actually perfect. I think I'm gonna buy both of these trap bundles, then I'll be able to test the cheap and expensive traps to see which will be more effective at catching insects. Hey, I guess let me just check them out. And thankfully, only a couple days later, I got the traps delivered in the mail. After taking them out, I separated them into cheap and expensive. You can see the cheap Venus flytraps actually gave me quite a lot for just $10.
I was going to say, this is
The
my
traps
usual
themselves
process.
did look pretty healthy, big, and had that signature green and red color. Nice. However, over on the expensive
That's
side,
kind of the
you
thing,
can
is when you
see
start
these
doing
are
something that
vintage.
you
They're not
really
even
do, I
packaged
kind
at
of
all,
like
and they look way more natural with moss all around the dirt. However, the main difference in these ones is that they basically fully red. Like, they literally look like an apple. I've never seen these flytraps like that. But other than that, these traps mostly look the same. Hopefully, at least one of them will be able to successfully trap a black widow. But before we test the black widow, we also got some other insects to test, starting with a fly.
So
And thankfully, I'm a weird bug guy, so I just got a container of a bunch of flies, which might actually mostly be dead, but I think some are alive in there. First of all, let's get the plants in their testing chambers, and we'll be testing the strength of the cheap $10 traps first. Without wasting any time, I just put in a single fly and put 30 minutes on the clock. As it gets caught before the timer's up, I'll add in some more flies. But instantly, as you can see, the fly started to climb along the glass to try and escape. Thankfully, though, I've sealed this enclosure shut, and once the fly realized that, he ended up going back down to the floor. Now, this is where things get interesting, because the fly landed on one of the pots with all of the Venus flytrap plants. What makes Venus flytraps so effective is actually their nectar. Just like normal flowers, these traps also produce nectar around this little green lip part of the plant. And basically what it's designed to do is lure hungry insects in, and while they're eating the plant, of course, it's shut. But I guess because these plants are so cheap, they didn't have very much of that nectar. Because after standing around for like a minute, the fly just flew away without even stepping in any of the jobs. And from there on out, the fly basically drained the 30-minute timer down all the way to 3 minutes by just standing on the glass. However, eventually he decided to explore near the cheap Venus flytraps once again. And this time he got a little bit too close, because he stepped onto one of the traps and it could literally close on him right now. The trap took a second too long, and the fly was able to fly out once it sensed the movement. See, Venus flytraps have a very interesting system for how they detect prey and activate their jaws, which I'll go more in depth with when the trap actually traps an insect. For now, the fly just sort of walked around on the dirt for the rest of the timer, and well, the cheap trap was a fail. Thankfully, over on the right, we got the expensive one, worth 10 times more, and this should have a much better result. So I put in a new fly, and let's get the timer started to see how quickly this guy gets caught. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this fly was a bit crazier than that first one, because for the first 3 minutes, he literally just flew around the entire enclosure like he was insane, just hitting all the glass trying to escape. But after he tired himself out, it was time for the Venus flytraps to do their thing. Instantly, you can tell the fly was way more drawn to the traps, as these expensive ones have a much stronger, more smelly nectar. And that was proven because right after, the fly walked in one of the traps. But quickly, it walked out right as the trap closed. Yeah, you can see in this instant replay, the trap may have missed the fly, but comparing the cheap and expensive traps, and the expensive one closes way fast. And only a minute later, the fly was still chilling near the traps. And this time, the nectar caught him off guard, because he walked onto the trap and put his face straight up to the lip of the plant where it was. And well, yeah, the video is paused right now, but you can probably tell what's about to happen. Just like that, the trap got a perfect close on the fly. You see, every single Venus flytrap has these super tiny trigger hairs inside of the jaws. And when a bug or something touches more than 2 of them, the trap starts to close. And these expensive ones are able to close so quickly that they catch most of the prey that steps inside. You can see slight bits of movement inside over the next 20 minutes, but over the next few days, the trap is going to release a type of acid on the fly to digest it down and grow even stronger. Well, it only took 5 minutes for that to trap the fly, and the cheap one didn't catch any. So the expensive one definitely takes home the win. And I think I'm going to have to rate him a 3 out of 10 for how entertaining it was to watch. And I just say that because the next 2 insects should be way more interesting, especially the black widow. I have no idea what's going to happen with that. Anyway, second up though, we got crickets to test. Thankfully, crickets can't fly or climb glass, so they should be way easier to catch. And after letting one loose in the cheap closure, I put 30 minutes on the clock. Let's see what happens. Now, for the first little while, the cricket spent most of its time just walking on the dirt along the side of the glass to, of course, try and find its name. Because let's be real, every cricket that sees me on this channel knows it's about to get eaten. He did not want to be in here. But after 5 minutes, he made his first approach to the traps. And one thing I should probably say is that the crickets are way more attracted to nectar as it's a primary part of their diet. And that was shown because soon after, the cricket started to climb on the outside of the jaws of this trap. And right after that, I actually realized the cricket had stepped inside one of the traps, and it sort of looked like it was drinking nectar. Hello, Venus flytrap. There's a cricket standing inside of you right now. Are you gonna close? Yeah, the cricket really just stood there for 30 seconds. When it was finished drinking the nectar, it started to walk out, and then finally the trap closed. Good job, bro. You're only a minute late at closing. I guess the cricket must have just not hit a trigger hair inside until the very end, which is why that happened. Anyways, nothing really new happened up until 15 minutes left on the clock. I decided I wanted to add in 3 more crickets to make this more interesting. And while these guys all ran around the enclosure, I closely watched them to see if any would step inside any of the traps. And at 5 minutes left, this happened. See, this cricket started to walk up the stem of this trap. Then he walked inside and realized it was a dead end and he tried to turn around. But it was too late because the trap closed on him, leaving him half stuck inside. So I literally just got some time-lapse footage of this guy to see if he'd be able to escape. And actually, while I was recording that, another cricket below also stepped into one of the traps. And he also got half of his body stuck inside. Thankfully, this cricket was able to use some of the stuff around him to pry himself out of the trap. However, I don't know if this guy will be able to do the same, since he's in the air and has nothing to grab onto. So, I guess I'll just leave you here. Sorry, boy. Good luck. Anyways, that concludes the timer, and I would call this a half success for the cheap plants this time, but oh boy, am I excited to do this with the expensive traps. I didn't want to waste any time, so I put in 1 cricket. And this time, the cricket instantly walked towards the traps, like within a couple seconds. And he started to just play with his life, because he would just be walking through the plants like this, narrowly escaping the insane speed of these expensive Venus traps. Now, only a few minutes later, the cricket once again walked into a Venus flytrap. This time, he managed to dodge all the trigger hairs, and he put his mouth up to the lip of the plant to drink some nectar. But yeah, the second he started moving again, he wasn't so lucky, because the trap got an absolutely perfect close on him. And well, it only took 7 minutes for the expensive traps to fully capture a cricket. So once again, I'm gonna have to give the win to expensive. And I think I'm gonna rate that a 6 out of 10 for entertainment, because way more traps closed, which was fun to watch. But you already know what time it is. It is a Black Widow o'clock. Yeah, it's time to test the Black Widows now. Now, I've never actually just seen a Black Widow walking around where I live. I don't know why, I guess they just don't have them here in my state. So the only way to get one was to get out the laptop and find a website selling them. I ended up finding a good listing on this website, so I bought some, and the next day they got delivered to my house. As you can see, I buy a pretty good amount of these guys. And as you can probably also see, they're super creepy. They got that signature glossy black color, a massive abdomen, and of course, they got the red hourglasses on the back.
I don't know where my
Let you
info
know they're
is, so I'm
extremely
going to use
venomous.
my
In fact,
downtown
something I just
instead.
learned about these guys is their venom is
I
actually
do enjoy
15
line
times
mixing,
more
so it's
potent
okay.
than rattlesnake venom. That's why when I opened the container to get a closer look, I got extremely scared when they started running away straight towards me. Bro, that Black Widow just ran out of here. He went down the side of the table and just started running around the floor. Don't worry, I actually scooped him up into this box I had laying around. I'm pretty scared of Black Widows. Anyways, I went and put one of the Black Widows inside the cheap trap enclosure and got 30 minutes on the clock. This is about to get interesting. Let's see what happens. Right away, the Black Widow made her way towards the traps. Now, Black Widows are a lot slower than crickets and flies, so if this spider steps inside the trap, there's a high likelihood of it getting caught. And while nothing really happened for the first couple of minutes, eventually the spider started to walk along the tops of some of the traps. You can see Black Widows are very meticulous with their movement, and it would very carefully place its legs above the trap, making sure not to step inside. But even with that, the spider was playing a dangerous game, because all it needed was one bad step. Anyways, about 15 minutes later, I noticed that the spider had actually started to spin a little bit of silk, and maybe it was planning on building its webs here. But unfortunately, she would never get the chance to finish. She took a wrong turn into the Venus flytrap, and well, it closed straight on her, almost perfectly. However, there was still some legs sticking out. To be honest, it didn't look good for the Black Widow. Besides a few leg twitches, it looked like the spider had just lost the Venus flytrap. And if you thought that was cool, well, you gotta see the expensive Venus flytrap, because right after putting the Black Widow in, he instantly walked up to a Venus flytrap. And literally within the first 30 seconds of the timer, he stepped inside one of the traps, ducked down a little bit too much, and the trap closed on him within an instant. In my opinion, this one was even cooler to watch. And yeah, his legs were also just stuck sticking out the sides of the trap. And well, hopefully that answers the question.
I don't think that there's like a single medium that's not worth learning because of that. Because they'll all teach you something new, whether it be patience or motor skills or diligence, what have you.
Store big with the DG $7 meal deal. And for $2, you can upgrade to a small Blizzard from the Blizzard Cup lineup, starring the Biscoff Cookie Blizzard. It's the $7 meal deal with $2 Blizzard upgrade. Get it delivered with the DG app.
Easy fix.
Watching a tadpole turn into a frog is one of the most interesting processes in all of nature. And in this video, I'm going to spend the next 50 days of my life raising 20 tadpoles into an army of frogs. It wasn't an easy process caring for them, and not every tadpole made it. But here is the full 3-month journey of raising tiny tadpoles into fully grown frogs. It all started on day 1, where I was waiting for the tadpoles to be delivered to my house. So in the meantime, I got out a glass tank and a bunch of supplies. You see, at first, the tadpoles are going to need to be fully aquatic. In order to raise them, I have to make an enclosure that is all water. So I laid down some soil and covered it in a thin sand. And finally, I put all sorts of decorations around, like pebbles, wood, and plants. And after filling it up with some recycled water, the enclosure was complete. Dang, check this out. This is pretty good. I've got some fun plans for when I add the tadpoles in here. But anyway, speaking of those, they're going to be delivered here tomorrow. So I guess just cut through that. Okay, I just woke up. I got an email saying there's a package here. And okay, actually, I'm not even sure if this is the right package, but it just says there's an animal in here, so probably is. And after unboxing it, I got my first look at the tadpoles. And to my surprise, they didn't look very normal. They were actually orange and very large. You see, when I bought them, I actually got a 20-pack of mystery tadpoles, meaning that once they grow up into frogs, it can literally be any species in the world, and some have really cool abilities. Oh man, I really hope we got one of those rare species. But for now, one by one, I put each of the tadpoles into a new enclosure, and immediately they started to explore all around and even interact with each other.
If I
But I
could
guess
give
this was their
people
first
one
time
thing,
being kept in a glass
I want
enclosure, because
to
this guy
help
didn't
you
really know how it
work
worked.
your
He just
art.
kept swimming into the
Not
glass,
get it to a
and
point where it's
yeah,
perfect,
he
because
got
here's the
brain
thing.
damage.
There will always
Well,
be
that's all
something
there was
that
to
you
do
can
on
improve
day
with your
2,
art.
so I came
No
back
matter how
on
long
day
you've been
3.
drawing.
But something
But if you can
unexpected
look at
happened
your
on
art and
this
you can
day.
see what
Shoot,
it
bro, I'm starting to
has
get
and what
worried.
value
Look
it
at the
has,
tadpoles. Almost
you
none of them
will
are even
grow so
moving.
much
They're all just
faster
like
because you'll
sitting
be able
at
to
the
look at your
bottom.
work
This could actually be a
objectively.
pretty big problem. I gotta
And
figure out why this is happening. So
objective,
quickly, I did
being able
research,
to view
hoping
your
to
work
find a fix.
objectively
And thankfully, I came
will
across this
allow
guy
you to
that
see
said
where
something
you can
about how
improve
the
without
problem
feeling
might
bad
get
about it.
fixed from adding in an
And
air
that's
pump.
something I
So I
really
immediately
like
got one of
about
those
it.
out and hooked it up in the water and turned it on. As you can see, it makes a bunch
Again,
of
because I don't love
bubbles,
doing
which
digital
apparently
art.
spreads
Well, and
oxygen
so
around the
it's part
water.
of the
But
reason
even
I do
after
digital
adding
art
this in, the
is
problem
if
was
I'm not
still
enjoying
here. The
art,
tadpoles were
then
still
something needs to
barely
change because
moving.
art itself
Okay,
is
I've
not
got
the
to make sure
problem.
these guys are all
I'm
right.
the
So as you
person
can see,
wielding
I
the
got
tool
out this little
after.
bottle of tadpole food. It has some
I
like
almost
protein
like
and
the
stuff, so I'm really hoping this is gonna get
I'm
them to be
wondering,
more
I'm not
active.
gonna
This
go
is my
with
last idea. This better work. So I dropped in a couple of the pellets,
I'm not
and
sure
literally
how
like
to
magic,
use
the
my-
tadpoles immediately started to move. They must have picked up the scent or something. I even
Okay,
put a ton of them in the middle, and they basically
No,
all
I do
just
like
turned
it
into
like that.
food-eating machines. I mean, look at all of them. The problem
Hold on,
of them
I'm
not
not
moving
good.
had been fixed. And even better news, I noticed that they had these tiny little legs starting to grow. This is a great sign, and it means as they grow bigger, arms will start to develop under the skin, and soon we'll have a full frog that can eat insects. Anyways, that's all there was to day 3,
Oh, wait, I think
and
this is orange,
unfortunately
too. I
on
just
day
picked it
4, I came back to
I
yet
could use
another
a red
problem.
colored pencil.
Bro, what the heck
I wonder if
happened?
that would get a
Why does the
similar
water look like sewage water? This obviously wasn't a good sign. So to fix the issue, I got out this filter to, filter the bad stuff out of the water. Thankfully, after setting it up, it cleared the water super fast, and the tadpoles were all fine. So I continued to feed them their tadpole pellets, but that was until day 8. On this day, pretty much every tadpole looked super healthy, and they were growing at a good rate. But to my surprise, over across the tank on top of a rock, I saw that one of the 20 tadpoles had died.
They're
Dang,
kind
bro,
of
I'm
just
not even
becoming
sure how
a
this guy
correct way to
died.
do it in the
I'm
sense
really
that people
hoping
are
the other
shaming
tadpoles are
you if you don't do
Now in the
parts
wild,
of the
4 of
flow.
every 5 tadpoles
But
actually
normally
don't
these
live
routes,
long
they
enough
can
to become
completely
frogs. So while it
destroy
sucks that this guy
the
died,
incentive
it's kind of to
to
be
experiment or try
expected.
new things.
Anyways,
It
on the
also
next
isn't
day, I
free,
wanted to
and
prevent any
it
further
makes it also
tadpoles
very
from dying,
quickly.
and considering some of the
So
tadpole legs were getting pretty
the
big
second
now,
that I
they should
started
be ready
feeling
for a
like
whole new
my
type of food to
and
make them
feeling
evolve
scared to try
even
new
faster.
things because I was like,
So
oh,
let's
what if
go cook it up for them
this
on the
breaks
Tara
what
Green
people
Cooking Show.
are expecting of me?
Today on
And I
the
was
menu,
like,
we got a
hold
very
on.
special
That's
item. We're making
not only is that
tadpole
ridiculous,
burgers.
I also
Only
hate
difference
thinking
is
like this,
instead
so
of
somebody's
normal
got to break
ingredients,
it.
we're using
And I'll
some
break it
romaine
myself.
lettuce as the bun, bloodworms as the patty, and some tadpole pellets to add a little bit of flavor. Alright, but anyway, step 1 is we're gonna get our lettuce, then we're just gonna put it under the sink and turn it on, and we're just gonna wash it. Hopefully you can hear me, it's kind of loud, the noise. Wash it. Then we take the lettuce, tear it up into tiny little pieces,
So
and
you
throw
plan
it
on
in a
going
pot
back
of
over this
boiling
with water
water
powers
to,
going to finish
cook.
that.
And then the final
I'm
step,
trying
we
to
just
remember
gotta
if that's something
assemble
you
the
do with
burgers.
cartons
So
or
I
not.
put down the bottom
I
bun,
tried
the
that
burger patty,
on an
some of the
experimental
tadpole
piece
pellets,
on
and then the
the
top bun,
so
and boom, check these burgers out. After freezing them for
the
a few
color, if I
hours, I
add
got
any
them
more
out
color, it
and
will
got
be
ready to feed these burgers to the tadpoles. Oh yeah, I already know they're gonna love them.
Is Mike
To
down
start,
here?
I dropped in 2 of the burgers, and after about 20 seconds, they slowly started to thaw out, and the
People forget
bloodworms
that artists
started to get
refine
unleashed from them.
expression and
Soon
not to
enough,
give
the
them
lettuce
space.
also separated,
You
and all
know,
the food
and
spread
I think,
all around the tank. As you can see, it
unfortunately,
didn't take
in
long until the tadpoles started to
capitalism will
notice.
take
They would literally
anything
just be
that can
swimming
be
around the
found.
water
I mean,
while
it
having
can
an
be a
end of
human
a bloodworm sticking out of their
experience,
mouth. It looks pretty
and will
tasty.
try to
I'm
get
just
you
kidding, it doesn't look
to
pretty
strip
tasty,
the
actually
humanity
pretty
of it so
nasty.
that it
I don't
flows
want to eat a
better.
bloodworm. But while they
You
were
have to
eating,
find
I
ways to
actually
direct
noticed that
the
one of the tadpoles has now
just
officially entered
feeding
stage
into that,
2.
because you'll
As you
start
can
doing
see,
it without
his
even
back was
realizing
starting
it.
to turn
You know,
yellow
I
and
don't know many
develop a
people
little
go
bit
out
of a
and just say,
pattern.
like,
And
oh
that's
yeah, I
not to
love
mention that his
capitalism, I
legs
love
were actually
selling
getting
the
pretty
soul.
giant by this point.
But because people like to eat
Frogs are
and
not this
stay
yellow color,
alive,
so we could actually be
you end
getting
up
a
falling
really
into
rare
it.
species of
Even in
frog.
instances you don't really want
So
to.
cool. Anyways, a few days later, on day 11, the colors of the sky became even
The
more
sheep
vibrant,
noises.
and there was some super good news.
When I go on TikTok or social media in general, I just get upset. The amount of hateful people that take up the internet and use their hateful views is so sad. It's part of the reason I stopped playing. I mean, frankly, as soon as I realized that everything that someone does to be cruel to someone else is just for posts, like literally just because they want attention, and that's the fastest way to get
So
people's
without
attention,
wasting
I stopped
time, I
doing
got
it.
out a new 20-gallon tank and a few different types of
Doing our part
supplies
is
to make a
eliminating
new
my
home.
perfectionism so
Obviously,
much.
with
That
this
is
second
also why I
enclosure,
tell
we're
people
still
to
going
play.
to have a water area
Because
so the
even if you
tadpoles can
struggle to
swim
like
around
your
and do
art,
their thing.
something
But
you
along
will
with
be
that,
a
we're
piece
also
of
going to have
someone
the
and they
land
will get so
area so that when
excited
the
for it.
tadpoles have their arms pop
It
out, they
gets
can start
hard to
hunting for
hate. You
insects
know,
on land,
I
which
can't
will
tell
be
you
very
to love
cool
it
to watch.
and
For the
think it's
build, I
perfect
started
and
by
there's
putting a
nothing
wall
to
of rocks along
want
the
to
middle and
improve,
connecting it
but
with
you
some
can start
wire
to see the
spray
value in
through.
something
On the left
even
side of
when
the
it's
rocks,
not
I
perfect.
basically
And
recreated
that's
the
the best
first
lesson
tank
you
with
can
some
get.
soil, sand, and a whole bunch of
Thank you for having
decorations,
an
and then I filled
anti-capitalism
it up with
realist. I
water.
have.
Then for the right side, I put some
See,
dirt,
here's the
sticks,
thing.
moss, and
If we were
stuff
to
like
start
that,
getting
and it
into it,
didn't take long for the second
it
enclosure
would be
to
blood.
be finished. Alright, check it
But
out.
trust,
It looks
that has always been my
alright.
mentality
I mean,
about
it's gonna
things.
serve its purpose. Anyways, I want to add that one frog in here once his arms pop out, so let's just wait until that happens. Anyways, it took a few days until that frog had his arms actually pop out, and by day 15, even his tail was starting to absorb into his body. Dang, this guy's basically a frog at this point, and that means he can survive out of the water. So I picked him up onto my hand, and I moved him into his
Now,
new
you don't
home.
have that
Immediately after putting him in, he actually just stayed in the water portion of it for a few hours. You see, at this point, they have very small gills, so they can breathe underwater, but of course, they also have lungs now,
I
so
like
they
blood,
can
you should
breathe
get into
on
it so
land.
there's
And a
blood.
little while later, I saw him sitting on the beach portion of the enclosure with half of his body poking out of the water. He was about to take his very first steps onto land, and once these frogs actually do go on land, I'll be able to figure out what species they are and feed them insects. This is going to be really cool to watch.
Have you gotten
First, I
attacked
want to let
yet?
you guys
Oh
know
yes,
we
quite
made
a
a
lot.
special limited
Please
edition merch
attack the baby
collection just
artist.
for this video.
I appreciate everyone that has been attacking me and doing attacks for us.
So if
And
any of this
I'm
merch
going
stuff
through and
looks
thanking
cool, make
people
sure
for
you buy
that.
it soon,
But
because
if you want
obviously
to draw
it's
an
sold out.
attack for
You can't buy
someone,
it.
please
There's
go
just so
attack
much
them
cool
or
stuff, a
a
bunch of
beginner
different
artist or
content from
someone
my
that's
channel,
trying to
and
play
yeah,
for the
just check
first
out the
time.
website. There's tons more stuff there. I'll let you know more at the end of the video. But anyways, let's just go back to the frog walking on land. The little froglet slowly peeked his head out of the water and scanned around the land portion to see if there was any predators. And after seeing it was safe, he took one step, two steps, and now our first frog
So
had
just
walked
my
on
sketches were
land for
basically
the
rounded.
very
So I put a
first
black coat,
time.
I put
Oh my
off black back over it and let's line our all right. You know, that's another one. what,
It's
at
very
least for
cool to
visual art,
find
you
these
started to
crazy
realize
guys
that,
who
like,
like
if you
art
do
movies
such
and
clean
stuff.
sketches already,
But the
and you
frog didn't
reduce
stop
them
there. He walked
5,000
even
times,
further onto the land
you're
and
kind of
started to do
sucking a lot
something
of the
that I
character
would
out of
have
it, which is
never
part of the reason I like
expected.
traditional art.
Oh my gosh, you guys see what this guy's doing right now? He's basically burying himself under the dirt. Obviously, this guy's that cool yellow
Say
and
something.
orange
You
pattern on
heard the
his
creature
back.
attack a baby. I did say that.
And now that he's
To
doing
the
this, I
village
100%
noises. I
know
really
it's
like
a
when there's like
Pac-Man frog.
Minecraft noises in
Basically,
that like
Pac-Man
pretty
frogs do
popular
this
in the
because they
background,
wait for an
and every so
insect to
often you
walk
just
above
hear
them while
like
they're
a
in the
fucking
dirt. And when that
Minecraft
does happen, it jumps out and eats it. It's very cool, and I'm about to show this guy
I
doing
was
it. But
considering
first, on day 16, I scooped the
putting
biggest
that
tadpoles
in
out the
my
old
green
tank and
pants
put them
and
into the
using
new
that
one
for
so that they would be able to walk once their arms popped out. And I wanted to wait till there's a couple more frogs, so I came back 2 weeks later on day 28, and now there was a total of 3 froglets. The original one, another yellow one, and for some reason, even an orange one. Pac-Man frog can be all sorts of colors, so maybe we'll even get some other types. But anyways, later that day, I noticed the 2 yellow frogs were chilling in the dirt with each other. Alright, I really want to see these guys jump
I know
out
that
of the
one
dirt
of my
with some
headmates
food,
parents
so that's why
for
I've got
art
these
this year,
crickets
so.
right here. Hey, let's just
And
drop some in.
I can't tell you when that's going to
So I
happen.
let the
I wish I
crickets
could tell
loose,
you
but while they
predictably when
constantly
that will
walked
happen.
near and sometimes even
But
on
if
top
you
of the
come to
frogs,
students,
the
you might
frogs
be doing
didn't really
fun stuff.
react to them at all. So instead, I tried to get out some smaller crickets, and oh boy, this is where it got fun. Right after putting them in, this lone cricket
I
went up
love
to the
doing
pair of
that.
frogs, and the one on the right
Yeah,
tried to eat it, but he missed. So the cricket
shapes
tried
are
to
so
run
much fun.
away, but then the left frog tried to eat it, and he missed even more miserably.
Happy
Yeah,
with
they're
it?
pretty bad hunters. But this cricket was just so stupid that he
Hopefully as
looped
chill as
back
the streamer
around
is
to the
in the
right frog,
future.
and this time he
It
was
took
out
me
of
a
luck,
while
because just
to
like that, he
get
was now
to.
getting swallowed
I
by
was
the
definitely a bit of a
Pac-Man
nervous
frog.
wreck when
Now,
I
I
first
thought that
started
was going to be
streaming.
all that I got
I
to
think
see, but 2 minutes later, one of the original
talking
big
disease, and I
crickets
could never
walked
shut
by
up.
them. I thought there was
But after
no
you
way
guys have
one of them would
such
try to
focus,
eat
just
it,
kind
but
of
as it
surprise,
slowly
especially when
got
you're doing
closer and closer, and
it
finally
gets around.
tripped on the dirt, the Pac-Man frog just opened his mouth and the cricket fell
I would not
straight
have gotten
into
to
it.
this
This
point
dude
without
just ate a
friends.
cricket
He
the size of
essentially
his own
grabbed me
body,
by
and
the
it seemed
shoulders
like
and
the
told
frog
me
on the
to
left was
told
pretty
me to
jealous. Yeah, he just kept like licking
I'm gonna
the
keep the
frog on the
first
right.
up. It's actually quite nice to see.
At this point, the main goal is to get all the tadpoles transformed and get an army of Pac-Man frogs. So I continued to care for them and feed them and all of that stuff. But that was until day 40, when there was a huge problem. By now, there was a total of 6 froglets roaming around the enclosure, but one of the froglets was sitting under a rock with a tail and legs sticking out of its mouth. Even though I was feeding them more than enough food, it had eaten one of the tadpoles.
Getting into it, not
Now,
just like
Pac-Man
for
frogs
the
will
competition, but
basically
also
eat
getting into the
anything,
school.
including other frogs.
I
I
can't
figured that
believe
since they were
our
so
attack
small,
rate
there'd be
has
no
gone
way
up
they'd
like so
eat each
crazy.
other, but unfortunately I was
Just by
wrong.
doing
Since I
that
now
for
knew there was
attacks.
even a
I
chance
mean, I
they
can
eat
believe
each
it, but
other, I had
it's
to
just
separate
astounding
all the
how much
frogs into their own enclosures. So I went out and got a lot of individual enclosures and some supplies to build everything up. For each tank, it's pretty simple. You basically just fill them up with about 3 inches of coconut fiber dirt, add some water to make sure it's nice and moist, put in some moss and sticks so they can hide under, and put in a shallow water dish. I repeated that process in a few more of the enclosures, and now you can see I have a lot of them. Now
I
the
was
final
planning on
step is that I
attacking
got out
this
some
guy.
heat mats
Right,
and
he
put them
got me
running
before I was
along
done
one
with
side
my
of the
piece. How did I know?
enclosures to
It
create a
actually
huge
happened to
gradient
rain.
inside
She
so the
was
frogs
working
will be
on
able
an
to choose
attack
how
for
warm they
someone,
want to be.
and
Alright,
then
check it out. Some of the
before
enclosures
she
are
could
ready for
even
the
start
frogs
putting
to
pen to
put
paper,
inside.
they
I probably
drew,
will have
they
to
did
build
little
bigger
frogs
enclosures as the frogs grow up
first.
because they get to be pretty big, but these should last for, at least a few months.
Permission to share art
So on
thing is
day